So the next several things that I'm going to do are all kind of one-off things that you have to, dot the I's and cross the T's before you're finished with your observation. We've created the second plan now, plan 2. Okay, so now we're going to just concentrate on getting to that sub-shutter level here. This is the most important change to our next several plans, but I'll just go through this in the slides. I won't actually demonstrate this in APT. It's easy to regenerate these plans. So here I'm allowing prism separation. So I'm going to allow for overlaps in the G395H spectra. In this case, that's a good idea because I have emission blobs in these high redshift sources, excuse me. And the scientists thought that they can disentangle, the emission line features. So this allows us to use a tighter target separation to accommodate as many targets into the MSA as possible. The catalog is fairly sparse, so there's only so much ability to accommodate extra targets that you'll get from doing this, but it will be a win solution, I think, to get a few more targets. Again, when I have a grading and a prism in the same plan, I can only allow for either the grading separation or the prism separation. I don't get the ability to tune the separation. When the prism is present, we made the decision that we didn't want overlapping prism spectra. Okay. So again, we use from the latest plan, from plan 2, we use the best search center that we use the pointing that we got from plan 2 as the best pointing, and then we narrow down on the width and height of the search area down to, now we're at sub-shutter level at 100 milliarc seconds. And I designed this set of parameters to get the 10,000. And we have all the same parameters in the bottom section. And we run that plan and we get some new results. The total weights are a little larger. There are more sources observed because we allowed for more flexibility. And we get the primaries in this kind of configuration here. So, and we can recognize that if we open up the top and bottom shutter at this location, we'll be able to get most of the primaries. I think all of the primaries, actually. So we'll do that after the fact. But okay, so we're checking now 100 milliarc second separation. Let's try a little tighter. Plan 4 will go down to 50 milliarc seconds. So we'll have, let's see, there's 250 milliarc seconds across a shutter divided by 50. So that's like 5 samples across a shutter. So we should really be able to detect any sub-shutter, structure in the heat map at this point. So we do that and we get these results. It's roughly landing in the same spot in quad 3. In fact, I think it is exactly the same pointings. All right, sorry, this is, exactly the same pointings as plan 3. The same primaries are observed and the weights are all the same because the pointings are the same and the same targets are in the group. So that's good. That's told us that making that, finer and finer grid has gotten us to a pointing that's pretty optimal now at this point because nothing's changing. So I'm going to fix the pointing at that pointing in my final plan, and I'm going to now relax the shutter centering constraint here in my final plan to open it up to try to obtain as many targets in the MSA as possible. Okay, and so when I run that final plan, it's, of course, it's in the same position, right? Looks very much the same as the last plan because I kept the pointing fixed. It took 1 second to run this plan because it's a fixed pointing. And then I was able to obtain several more sources, 42 targets. But let's take a look at what that looks like in plan 5, okay? So I can show you. Let me go over again to this. And we're looking at the final plan now and with the results for the final plan in the MSA shutter view. So we have to go to the plans pane. And here are all my exposures. There should be 12. There's 12 exposures. So 3 nods for G395H at dither point 1, 3 for the prism, 3 more for at the second dither point for the 2 gratings. So that's what the 12 are. I'm just going to click on the first one and show it because that has all the information that we need. And now you can see that the green sources, the primaries, are on quadrant 3. See, when I keep my cursor in that quadrant, you can read the upper left corner says Q3. So it's in quad 3. Down here, we're quad 4. These are in, the shutters are mostly located, I mean, the sources are mostly located in the areas where they will not suffer from red end cutoffs. But remember, we only designed that mask for the primaries, okay? Because we wanted to optimize pointing for the primaries. So this is what we get. We get a lot more sources. And I wanted to show you, if we click on, let's look at plan 4, same result for plan 4. So we're in plan 4, and I'm going to look at the same exposure for plan 4. And actually, I want to bring that up front. I'm going to compare the two. Let's see. Okay, and now what I want to do is go back to the targets area and select all of the sources that are in plan 4. I just want to show you something. So all of the sources in plan 4, I have to, I don't know if some of our, I do Command A, and that selects all the sources, and that should then highlight them in both views, okay? So now what you can see is all the sources for plan 4, almost all of them are in plan 5, okay? But what we've done is gotten some extra sources. Now, not every single source from plan 4 is in plan 5. I think you can see there's one here that's missing in plan 5. And a different source was selected in that area, preventing the selection of that one. And the reason is because I opened up the shutter spacing criteria, right, the margin, and it got a different source that's, as it's marching down in order in the candidate list, it picked up another source before it got to the tighter constrained source. Okay, so the way to make sure that that doesn't happen in your own plans is to, the only way to make sure it doesn't happen is to actually reweight the, after you run this plan with the tighter constraint, you reweight the sources in your catalog and reorder your catalog, or just one of the other, just reweight or reorder the catalog so that the sources that have been selected are at the top of the candidate list, or or weighted higher, and that will actually get the same sources the next time you run the plan. But I don't think we did too badly here, and I want to show the collapse shutter view so you can compare the two. So I think you can see that all the extra sources we picked up are on the perimeter where we relaxed the shutter constraint. Okay, so we've got all of these, almost all of the same plan 4 sources, and we have extra sources from relaxing the constraint here. So I think we did pretty good. Let's see. So let's go back to the presentation now. And click. Okay, and so now with that plan 5, we create the Moss observation by clicking that button with plan 5 highlighted. And then we modify the MSA configuration to lengthen the primary slit. And the way we do that is, again, with the MSA configuration editor. And to show you that live, bringing up APT again, and I'm looking at plan 5 is I'm going to delete all these other plans because this is the observation I want. Okay. And I want to go into the form editor to see the observation template. And then to bring up the MSA configuration, I scroll down here and I click on one of them. And you'll see that two of those entries use config 1. There's 2 configs, one at each dither point. So we have to modify both of them. Okay, so we're going to do the best we can for the primaries now. We're going to just modify the slit for the primaries. I'm going to open this shutter by clicking and open that shutter by clicking. By clicking the second one, I created a conflict with an existing source. So I'm going to make a decision, command decision here, and I don't want this filler source. It's interfering with my primary. So that's what I do. I've modified the configuration, and I have to do the exact same, then I save it, and when it saves, it asks me this crazy question: do you want to update the existing configuration or create a new one? I don't want to create a new one. I want to update the existing one so that those changes will be applied to both gradings. So I want to say update. Okay, so I've modified it here. I do the same thing for config 2, and then I have my final plan. And then in the observation template, there's a few I's to dot. You decide whether you want to use confirmation images, yes or no. And those can occur, if you select yes, you can, I guess you don't select yes, you just select one of these entries here if you want them. They can occur after just the target acquisition or after every MSA configuration. And what the confirmation images are for is to get an image of the sources in their respective slits for you to have for, data analysis afterward, to know exactly where the sources were placed in your slits. The last thing I wanted to show you is that this is going to be the observation we're keeping, so we have to set the reference stars. And though I'm not showing you the work of selecting the reference stars, once they're present in your catalog, right? So you've got the catalog, you've highlighted the catalog, there's this column called reference. Let me highlight it. So let me click it. So there's several sources in here that are given a value of yes. And then in addition to this column that you have to specify in your final catalog, you have to give the TA filters are F110, 140X, and clear. You have to give the magnitudes of those reference sources in these 3 colors, right? So then that's what NBT uses this catalog information in order to bin all of the respective reference stars into different magnitude bins to be able to select the best one. So and it's at the visit level that you can see this. So it comes up and it's usually with none selected. If you click on the menu, you'll see a series, whatever it can find is binned into these bins. So nominally, we like to have 8 sources. In this case, there were only 7 available in that magnitude bin, and they fall across 3 quadrants. So that's pretty good. It still allows for optimal accurate TA accuracy. So I'm going to click on that and see where they lie. Okay, so there's at least 1 in these 2 quadrants, and there's several in that quadrant, and I think that's fair. That's pretty good. So that is how you select your reference, your TA parameters. By selecting this reference star bin, it will then select the clear filter and then the NRS Rapid D1 filter for the target acquisition, for the MSA target acquisition. So the hard work is in generating those columns for your catalog, and that has to be done. There's information in the JDocs about how to do that, how to get the colors of your sources and use that information to generate those reference columns. There's some tips at the end on what to be careful of, and I think I've mentioned most of these anyway. And then this is the coming attraction. With the next release of APT in February 22nd, I guess, we're going to be getting this new capability, which would have saved the folks who did this program a lot of trouble, because it allows for 5 wavelength ranges of interest for each source in the catalog. They can be fine-tuned to the redshift of the source. You can fine-tune a starting and ending wavelength for each spectral feature that you're interested in for each source in the catalog. And then NBT will use that information depending on whether you select to use it here in the planner. You can select just one of them, or all 5 if you want. And then it will plan accordingly to that information there. So that's coming in the next version.